Hello, thanks for joining me today. I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about the Maui wildfire tragedy that happened. I've got a Joe Rogan clip for you from his podcast. Tulsi Gabbard is on there, who is a politician. I believe she's from Hawaii, or her constituents was Hawaii. She was a Democrat, but she left the Democrat Party, and I think she's now an independent. Anyway, she's on the Joe Rogan podcast, and she's really highlights the utterly shameful response from the Biden regime, and how there's really been abysmal help for the people who've gone through this god-awful tragedy, lost everything, their homes are gone, their communities are destroyed. I'm going to play the video. It's about 10 minutes long. It's worth watching the whole thing if you want to get an idea of the response to it. I just think it's worth watching, because these poor people, what they're going through, it's truly disgusting. So let's have a look here. And I'll have a chat about it after the video. Let's watch the video first. I've already transitioned. Please like the video. It really helped me out. And if you can, please watch to the end. It tells the algorithm thing to send it out to more people. So it's one of the best things you can do to help the channel, is like watch the video to the end, if you can bear it. Of course, if you're not already subscribed. I think something like 90% of the people that watch the videos aren't subscribed. So if I could possibly earn your subscription today, that would be fantastic. Anyway, let's dive into this.
The people in office, you know.
Well, I mean, Tulsi can speak to that better than anybody.
I don't know Mayor Biss. I may have met him in passing, but this has been one of the big failures around the aftermath of the wildfire on Maui. Is this total vacuum of information from government officials to the people. And in that vacuum, obviously people have all kinds of ideas or theories or this or that, but people were left without any kind of communication from anyone in a position of authority to provide help for days and weeks. And it created massive problems. And so, the immediate line of response needed to come from the county and from the mayor and from their emergency response director. And unfortunately, they did not communicate. They're still not communicating. There's still a huge lack of transparency, and therefore an increasing level of distrust in any of the levels of government that should be bending over backward to answer questions and to say, hey, here's what's going on every single day. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're having a hard time doing. Whatever the case may be, it's been a major problem from the beginning.
Do you think that this is because of a complete lack of preparedness, that this is an unprecedented type of disaster? It never happened before. It happens, and they just weren't prepared. They don't know what to do, and it's incompetence?
I don't know what you think to that, but like the idea that they weren't prepared for it, that's ludicrous to me. If that is the case, then it's what an absolute shambles of a operation they're running. I would imagine that there isn't a relief machine in operation where because it's not like America doesn't have its share of disasters. Like, they got tornadoes, earthquakes and wildfires. Now, there should be a machine there ready to go as soon as necessary. I can't believe for a second that there isn't the facilities to make that happen already in place. Surely not. Anyway, let's see what she says. Sorry, I butted in.
I think that is very true.
Wow.
And there's, in hindsight, there are things going back Maui has experienced drought year after year after year. Brush fires are a common occurrence, especially on the west side of Maui, where Lahaina is, the side of the island that was most impacted by this. It is, being prepared for wildfires on Maui is something that if you look at their, emergency assessment documents, it's mentioned almost as a bit of an afterthought. Maui Fire has been vastly undermanned and under-resourced for quite some time. So there's all these different things you can look at from a preparedness level that should have been addressed long before. But from the county officials, yes, they were completely overwhelmed and unprepared for this unprecedented wildfire. It's the worst wildfire our country has seen in over 100 years. But the problem is, once you get to that point, like, oh shit, this is really, really, really bad. Not only in the hundreds of lives lost in that fire, but the surrounding communities of people who survived, but who went without power, who went without any cell phone signal, any ability to communicate with people, who didn't have, all of the gas stations in their neighborhood, they were empty. There was no way to get gas. They couldn't get food. They couldn't get clean water. The water supply systems were contaminated. I mean, there was disaster upon disaster that came in the aftermath.
That's just crazy to me that there was no communication. What about like Elon Musk's, what's it, a thing called Starlink? They can sort out communications in Ukraine so they can conduct their wars, but they can't send over some satellites there so people can communicate and sort out these poor people.
Of the fire that went unaddressed. And my biggest, I went there a few days after the fire happened. Maui was my district for 8 years when I served in Congress, and had a lot of friends there, and went out to those affected communities. And what I heard over and over again was no one from the county, the state, or the federal government has shown their face in our community. It is neighbors helping neighbors, families helping families. People on the island of Molokai, which they don't have much on their island. Everything comes in by barge. They're loading up whatever they have in their general store on these little boats and running them over to West Maui on a private boat dock, because that was the only place that they wouldn't be blocked from bringing food and water and medical supplies.
Now, why are people being blocked? I keep hearing that about people being blocked. Is it because they haven't gotten an accurate death count? Is it because they have to make an assessment of how much was damaged, and it's so massive, it's so vast that they haven't been able to do that yet? Like, why is it being blocked?
Things are being opened up now. I think people are able to get in and out of the West Maui area. I understand that the historic town of Lahaina is still being blocked off, and they're working on reopening it as we speak. But in the couple of weeks after the fire, I don't have a good answer why they continue to block the roads, again, to those surrounding communities. Why?
That is suspicious as hell. So there's this crazy fire that burns a bunch of buildings, but like mysteriously misses out a bunch of other, like, the mansions and stuff, and it just happens to burn all the properties of the land that the government apparently wanted. Because you might have heard there's all these conspiracy theories that like direct energy weapons were used, which I think are basically like lasers from the sky, which do exist. Them weapons do exist, but there's people saying that they were used to deliberately set the fire. I do believe. I don't know much about that, but I do know that's one of the conspiracy theories going around. But the thing that doesn't help with conspiracy theories is complete lack of transparency. If the government's shutting off the whole area, like they put up a big wall all around Ground Zero there, and they won't let drones fly over, they won't let anyone in there, they won't let press in there. Why so much secrecy for a fire? What kind of cleanup do they need to do? What's the worst thing that could be there, really? We're talking about people's homes and businesses and stuff. Maybe asbestos? Like, you can put a mask on. Like, they're not letting people go back to their homes to get, like, no matter what. People have lost everything. They've lost their pets. If they had money in the house, that's gone. Like, it's literally everything's gone. And they won't let them go back. It's so, to me, that's really suspicious.
Why they blocked people like Kai Lenny and others from using their jet skis and boats to try to bring supplies in through the water. You could say, well, we were trying to secure the area, but you're blocking friends and family from coming in and bringing necessary supplies, literally doing supply runs. So, I jumped on a plane that was doing supply runs from Kahului, the main airport on Maui, out to this tiny little airport that serves that community. And that was, for a lot of days, the only way that they could get supplies brought in. I don't know. I really don't know. But again, this goes back to, why aren't you communicating to people what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing? All the result of their decisions left people and families and communities stranded in their most dire time of need.
While they send billions to the Ukraine, they can pull billions out of their backside just like that, send it over to the Ukraine. Forgive me if I've already said this. They've given $700 to each resident, while they're giving I think it works out to about $900 to every Ukrainian. It's like, look after your own before you try and fix the rest of the world. And if you don't have the facilities to be able to help people when things like this happen, maybe you shouldn't be sending all that money abroad and starting proxy wars, never-ending bloody wars, which they seem to just endlessly be able to just materialise money for, while your own people get crushed.
And the mayor didn't go out and show his face until almost 2 weeks after the fire happened.
Wow.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
And
It's
then
insane.
says he wants to take the land for the state. That's his first
Now,
word.
this is
I think
one of
the
the reasons.
governor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
the
one of the
governor,
reasons why I
sorry.
wanted to talk about this. Like, how is that possible? That these people could lose their home and then lose their land? Like, how is that possible?
It is the number one concern of people there in Lahaina, is that a few days after this happened, I haven't spoken to the governor, but he said in a press conference, he said, we're talking to the attorney general. He said, I'm talking to my attorney general to explore options for the state to take over that land and use it to build workforce housing or build a memorial to the for the
sounds
people who
so
lost
insane.
their lives.
Yeah.
But the fears that the people in Lahaina have, some of whom, like Archie Kalepa, famous surfer, community leader, Native Hawaiian leader, his family has lived in Lahaina for 9 generations, now being told, well, the state, the governor is looking at taking that land, taking ownership of that land, that it is unconscionable. And there's, we'll for those who've been displaced, we'll see about doing a land swap and we'll send you to the Big Island to live in Puna.
Jesus.
It's
Kick them off the valuable land, which they know would be worth God knows how much more in the future, and send them over to the crappy bit over there. God, these people. Doesn't it seem to me, it seems to me that the American government is just so utterly corrupt to its core. Like every tentacle of the Biden regime is just utterly rancid.
taking away the sovereignty of people's rights to have a say over their home, in many cases their generational lands, it is such an abuse of power. And so this is, and I'm glad that there are leaders in the community who are leaning into this fight to make sure that they are fighting this fight before anybody tries to do that.
Fighting a fight. They've got to fight. They've just had to have everything taken from them. Like a massive tragedy. Worst wildfire in 100 years. It's terrible. And now they've got to fight for their land. What? On what planet are we living? It's
Rather than looking in the rearview mirror and saying, gosh, I wish we had done something.
But just imagine a governor going on television after a massive tragedy where we don't even know the number of people dead yet. You have this massive area that's been burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about taking it over for the state. That's an insane position to take.
It is.
Post-tragedy. When
And
people are suffering at their most, they can't
Yeah.
even believe it happened.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's saying, we're going to take it for the state and make a memorial? How about give the fucking people their homes back?
Exactly.
One of the things we went over yesterday, which is a crazy number, we were looking at the amount of money that was accidentally sent to Ukraine. Like they oversent $6 billion. And then I said, well, how much would it cost to rebuild every house in the Maui fire? And it's $5 billion. $5 billion
Wow.
something.
Yeah.
Like that's just like accidental money. But there's no talk of doing that. There's no talk of doing that. Isn't that interesting?
The way, and it's happened 2 or 3 times now where the Pentagon has said, oh, we miscalculated how much money we had set aside for Ukraine. So we have an extra $4 billion to send now that we didn't know we had. And this has happened a few times. Secretary of State Tony Blinken went to Kiev yesterday promising, hey, we're going to give you another $1 billion now. And this is the thing. When I was out there in Maui, person after person was like, Tulsi, tell me what would happen if we started to call ourselves Ukraine. You think they would give us some money then to take care of our families, to fix our roofs, that have been torn up by the hurricane winds that came through, to make sure we have clean water to drink? You think they might pay attention to us then? And then FEMA comes out, the FEMA director comes out and does this press conference. I think it was at the White House. And she says, well, someone said, well, what are you doing for Maui? She's like, oh, we're giving a one-time $700 payment to everybody who's been impacted by the wildfire. A one-time $700 payment.
It's insane.
Hawaii has the highest cost of living in the entire country.
in the entire country and they give them $700. That's a bloody insult. You'd throw it back in their faces, wouldn't you? I mean, what's that going to do? You've just lost everything. Home gone, car gone, all your possessions gone, no clothes, no nothing. Everyone you know, every home, your whole environment that you probably grew up in, destroyed down to the ground. It's in ash. You literally got to build out of the ashes. And old Mr. Biden chucked you 700 quid. There you go, shut up. Oh, how many billions do you need, Ukraine? Here you go.
The entire country. And how freaking insulting is it to have the lead disaster response administrator from the Biden administration stand there and proudly say, hey, we're giving everybody one $700 payment.
It's insane. And it's insane especially because of how much money we're sending to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because there can be no doubt that these things are financially motivated now.
It's funny, you know, the Democrats, they dress themselves up like the real caring party, you know, the party for the people. But, like, it just seems to me that they will say, they say all the sweetest things. They tell you, whisper all the sweet nothings into your ear while they're stabbing a knife in your back. Or when you really need them, they're completely impotent. I don't trust any of the Western leaders at all at the moment. I think pretty much every country in the West has got a tyrant for a leader, especially Canada with Trudeau. I mean, he's just an absolute fascist pig, and I don't say that word lightly. What happened in Afghanistan, an absolute shambles of a withdrawal out of Afghanistan after, 20 years of war, and how Biden screwed that up. Just absolutely mind-bogglingly inept, to put it mildly. And then when you've got these disasters going on in his own bloody country, and he's nothing. He hasn't even got a comment. He was asked for a comment by a reporter about it, and he just said no comment. It makes me sick. These poor people. Can you imagine? I wish I could remember the name. There's a channel that I was watching. This is useless information, but I was watching a channel with someone in Maui, going around filming the destruction, and some of it is just really bizarre. Just like, there'd be like a grass patch with a car in the middle of it, no fire on the grass, no trees, but the car's burnt out. And when I say burnt out, I mean it's completely frazzled, and he was like picking up bits of metal from it, and it was just disintegrating. It's like the heat that must have been there is just incredible. And they still don't know the death count, and there's apparently loads of kids missing, which they're not catered for. It's just like, what is going on? It's just so much craziness going on in the world at the moment. You know, it feels like we're on the possible verge of World War III. You've got the most powerful nation on the planet being run by God knows who. It's not Joe Biden though, is it? There's someone pulling the puppet strings behind him. It's just everything seems to be upside down and confused and wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's a real I get a real uncomfortable feeling like something's about to happen. I hope I'm wrong. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If there's any comments you've got to make about this whole situation, I'd love to read them to see if you agree with me how the American government, Biden's regime, is handling this and pretty much everything. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe the video. Thanks so much for watching to the end. Take care.